putting their time and effort to make this happen. It's obviously not just tonight, it's every single week. Thank you for the hostess for sponsoring this and allowing this to happen. Be'ezrat Hashem. This show should be L'Refuat Heleni Orna Bat Hen Hana. And all those who need refuah should have refuah. And all those who need zivug should have zivug. And all those who need children should have children. And anyone who needs any Yeshua, any redemption, Hashem should answer them. And this should also be Li'ilun Nishmat Menachem ben Rachel, Eden Claude ben Sharon, Marcus ben Fortuna, and refuah shlema. In addition to what we said is Chaya Dorit bat Geula, Gabriela bat Sarah, Oz ben Michal, Mordechai ben Leah, Brachat bat Isha, Chana bat Sarah. Baruch Hashem, this has been growing and growing and growing. And again, I want to thank those who are responsible for making this happen. Thank you again for inviting me. It's my zechut to be here every single time. I get very excited when I get that phone call or text message because it's a big privilege to be here. I want to talk to you about something that we read last week in the parasha. And because my brother-in-law insisted, I'm going to incorporate and connect it to Pesach. So last week, I'm not going to too much get into the details of it, but just give you the idea. Last week we read Parashat Para. Parashat Para is a mitzvah that's called a hok. Hok is a mitzvah, not that there isn't a reason for it, but it's a mitzvah that we don't know the reason for it. The Midrash explains there's always one person in a generation that knows the reason for it. So Moshe Rabbeinu knew. But generally, people don't know the reason for this mitzvah. What is this mitzvah? Basically, everybody today has some impurity. We all share the same impurity. It's impurity of the dead. Everybody today has this impurity that we share. How does someone have this impurity? Anyone who has died, if someone touches them, and then they touch somebody else, they become impure. So the whole world, every Jewish person that we know today has this impurity. How do we remove this impurity? We have a mitzvah, the red heifer, the red cow, where they take it and it's sacrificial work. They take it, they sacrifice it, then they take its ashes. And the priest, when he takes his ashes, for someone who has this impurity, he takes the ashes, he sprinkles it on the person who has this impurity, and that person becomes pure. Paradoxically and ironically enough, because the Kohen does it himself, he becomes impure. Which is quite funny, because you would think that the person who comes to purify would also be pure, but he really becomes impure. And we don't know the reason for it, because it doesn't really make sense. Is this noise manageable in between? The little noise, it's fine? Can you make it better? Can you fix it? Is there a way to, maybe I should move away from it a little bit more? Push it back a little bit more, right? Okay, hopefully we're not going to have to suffer. So, basically this mitzvah, we don't know the reason for it. Now, there's a rabbi, his name is Rashi, and he tells us on this something very interesting, because the first verse that we read last week on it is, or the second one, Zot Hukat Torah. This is the principle of the Torah, which means it's not just, it's a mitzvah, it's a pillar, it's a foundation for the Torah. To know that there's a mitzvah, that we don't know the reason for it, but guess what? We have to do it. So Rashi says something very interesting. He says, and I quote, that the Satan or the Yetzer Hara, or the evil inclination, as well as the other nations, when they hear or learn about this mitzvah, they make fun of us. They taunt us. They put us down. And they say, what is this mitzvah? What's the reason behind it? So God says, you know how you answer them? God said so. This is a mitzvah that I command you, and you have no business in trying to understand it. You have no business. You have to accept it, the mitzvah in and of itself. There's just a little bit of a problem here, and I'll tell you what it is. When someone asks you, hey, why do you do something? Why do you do what you do? And you say, I don't know. I just do it, because everybody's doing it. I don't have a real intelligent answer to say. And then they make you feel as if you lack individuality, you don't have real character, you're just following the herd, you're doing what everybody else is doing. And they try to provoke or trigger your insecurity. They try to tell you, what are you doing? Why are you doing? Not only does not make sense, you look foolish. When we do something, and we don't know the reason behind why we do it, and then someone taps or tries to get under our skin to try to trigger our insecurity, how does that make us feel? Pretty stupid. And that feeling makes us extremely uncomfortable. Why would someone want to trigger your insecurity? Typically speaking, when someone wants to trigger your insecurity or provoke you, is because they try to control you. They very much try to get a hold. Now, sometimes people can trigger insecurity unintentionally. They don't mean to do it. But those who know us very close, sometimes they will do it to try to control us, even our loved ones. But that's generally the case. I'll give you another example, even from current events, so I can really drive this point in. Obviously, what's been happening since October 7th, there is one line that is a pet peeve for me that I can't hear people say when speaking about Israel. They say Israel has the right to defend itself. It's very hard for me to hear that line, and I want to tell you why. The anti-Semites, and I say this in quotation marks, the clever ones, why do they say what they're saying? They love it when a Jew tries to justify himself. It makes them feel amazing when we try to justify ourselves. It's a good feeling for them. Baruch Hashem, today we have Eretz Yisrael, and we have a place in which it's a safe haven. So when they try to make us justify ourselves or do what we do, we don't have to answer them anymore. I don't have to answer you. Because what they do is they'll start quoting different things that makes us feel like we're bad people, etc., try to provoke our character, try to make us feel as if we are the scum of the earth, etc. We don't have to answer them anymore. Because all they're trying to do, at the end of the day, they try to make us justify ourselves. It's very hard in any relationship if you try to make the other side always justify themselves. The antidote to that is, I don't have to answer you. Today we have Eretz Yisrael, we'll do what we gotta do, and that's it. I don't have to answer anybody. When we have the need to constantly answer, that's when we fall trap. We fall into their trap that they're trying to always get us into. Which leads me to the following. I want to show you where this actually took place for the first time. Adam HaRishon, God tells him, I don't want you to eat from the tree of knowledge. Don't do it. He got the commandment single-handedly. Now, he had to convey it over to his wife, Hava, Eve. Except, he didn't do it the same exact way Hashem did it. He did it on his own terms. When Hava saw the tree of knowledge, and the snake, which is also the Satan himself, he went up to her, and he began to engage in conversation with her. He told her, God doesn't want you to eat from this tree of knowledge. Isn't that strange? So she tells him, yes, we're not allowed. We're not allowed to eat it, and we're not allowed to touch it. God never told Adam HaRishon, you can't touch it. Where did it come from that she said, you can't touch it? So it must mean that Adam HaRishon, the way he conveyed over that rule to her, he did it in a way where he felt like she needed additional level of protection, that she would not come and eat from the tree of knowledge. It clearly backfired. What's interesting is the way he gave it to her showed that Adam had his own insecurity. And that insecurity transferred over to her. How do we know this? When the Nachash comes to her, the snake, he tells her, you can't touch the tree. So the Midrash tells us he pushed her onto the tree. And then when she hit the tree, he told her, you see, you're not dead. You said if you touch the tree, you're going to die. Look, you're alive. She said, wait a second. That's true. I am alive. He says, do you know why God doesn't want you to eat from the tree of knowledge? It's because he doesn't want you to be like him. A being that can create a world. And you know what he did to essentially to Eve? He really tapped into her insecurity. He was telling her that there's a being out there who's trying to take advantage of you. That he doesn't want you to have access to what he has. And that he's using it against you. And that's how she ended up taking and eating from the tree of knowledge. And I'll take it a step further. When she ate from the tree of knowledge and her mind opened up and she saw the mistake she made, then her insecurity triggered. I know it sounds funny what I'm about to say, but it's the truth. That's what Rashi tells us. He says, do you know why she gave Adam HaRishon the fruit to eat from? Because she said that she cannot bear the fact that if she dies and he remains alive, he's going to have another woman. She cannot bear that fact. It's too difficult. So she had to make sure that misery loves company. He's also going to eat from the tree of knowledge. And it's one thing after another. How do we treat this? How do we have the ability to actually go on and deal with these insecurities that we have in these relationships? First of all, I want to start off with a statement. Who says insecurities are bad? Why are insecurities bad? If you allow them to. If you allow them to take advantage of you, you're right, it is bad. But I will say this. Do you think you can grow closer to a person when you know each other's vulnerabilities or insecurities, or when you have your guard up? It's only when you are willing to share those vulnerabilities, those insecurities, only then can you actually get really close to somebody. If a wife is willing to share her vulnerabilities and insecurities with her husband, and vice versa, guess what? Part of why God put them together in this world is that they can help each other and empower each other. That's one of the main reasons. Unfortunately, sometimes things get really bad, and the opposite is true. They tend to maybe abuse it and take advantage of it, but that's never the goal. But this is where God really sets himself apart. It's unbelievable. You know, on Rosh Hashanah, in the 40 days before Rosh Hashanah, in the 10 days of Tshuva, there's one very unique prayer that we say constantly. It's called the Yag Midot, the 13 attributes of mercy. Most of you are familiar with this. We say, Amonai, Amonai, El Rahum veHanun, Erech Apayim veRav Chesed veEmet. These are the 13 attributes that we have that God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, anytime there's no more merit left for the Jewish people, anytime that's it, there's nothing I could do, there's nothing that could be done for the Jewish people, I'm giving you, this prayer is my kryptonite, and I want you to use it, because it's my Achilles heel. I want you to use it because it's always going to help. That's what God says to Moshe Rabbeinu. In fact, not only does he say it, God actually shows him, the Midrash explains, God shows him that in the way in which we can understand it, God takes a talit, and he actually is the Hazan, and he leads the prayer himself. He's the one who says, I'm leading the prayer. And he shows us to Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, there's been instances in which Moshe Rabbeinu did not know something. So God showed it to him in an image of fire. But over here, God goes out of its way to show him how to do this prayer, and he's leading the services. Why? What changed? Just tell him to pray like everything else. Why are you leading the prayer? Another thing to pay attention to is we say God's name back to back. Amonai. We do a little pause. Amonai. Very rarely do we ever say God's name back to back because it's so sacred. There are certain instances sometimes, maybe when we, in Balachin Nafshi, when we conclude a verse, then we say God's name and then we say it again. But we very rarely say God's name back to back. So the rabbis want to know what's different here, what changed. So the rabbis say the following. The first time we say God's name is that we're asking God to show us compassion before we do a sin. And then when we say God's name the second time is after we do the sin, we're also asking God for compassion. So you guys are smart, so you're probably thinking like, why do I need compassion before doing sin? I mean, I don't really need compassion before doing sin because I didn't really do a sin. I need compassion after the sin. A rabbi explained to me the following. It really helped me appreciate another level of Hashem and God that I was not aware of. He said the following. God knows that you're about to sin. He understands it and he knows very well you're about to sin. We know when we're about to sin. In fact, there's almost no reality where we don't think about a sin before doing it. Because the way we're programmed is before a sin is actually about to happen, it needs to go through our brain, our thinking process. We need to process it. And then once we're able to process it, then we're able to actually go in and doing the sin. So God knows, God understands we're going to sin. And then a person unfortunately sins. And then God will need to show his compassion provided they do real, genuine tshuva. Let me ask you this question. Maybe when maybe we were younger, we did something we weren't supposed to be doing. Maybe drinking, smoking. And let's say our parents had knowledge of it. Let's say they had knowledge of the fact that they knew we were drinking or smoking at a very young age. And we have no idea that they know. Oh, but they know. So they're coming to us with a question. Hey, did you smoke? Did you drink? Now, like everybody else, no way, me? Never. What are you talking about? Drug test me. For all I didn't do it. I mean, we have this confidence, no way. And then they come out with the full-blown proof and they got us. I'm sure this happened to somebody. Maybe it's a principal or a teacher. Police officers are very good at doing that. They will make sure they get you in the legal system. People do this often. What's interesting is they have knowledge of something before that we know they have knowledge of it, and they use it against us. God, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. God knows we're going to sin, and the compassion before the sin is that he doesn't take that knowledge and use it against us. That's the compassion before the sin. That I have this information that makes me essentially more powerful, but I'm not abusing it. I'm not using it against you. After the sin, a person needs to do tshuva to actually get compassion. But God judges us according to what we do here and now, not based on the knowledge of what he knows we're going to do. That's a very refreshing concept. It's very refreshing to be in this type of relationship. Knowing that the Supreme One, Hashem, is not going to use that knowledge against me. Let me ask you a question. Is that a God that's out to get us, or is that a God that's out to empower us, to make us feel more secure? I'm here to build you. I'm not here to get you. I don't want to see you fail. I want to see you succeed. You know what's the biggest proof? Every single year we have something called Yom Kippur, and I wipe you clean. I want you to start fresh. Because I'm vested in the success of this relationship. Let me ask you another question. In every single relationship, even a husband and wife can be married for years. Do they know everything about each other? They don't know everything about each other. I'll tell you a story, personal one. Yesterday, my wife brings in the shopping bags, and she's like, "Can you give me the walnuts?" I said, "Sure." She says, "We're married for a decade, and you never bought me walnuts before." So I said, you like walnuts? And I said, you never told me you like walnuts. The first time I find it. So she gives me a look. Now, after a decade, you figure you learn a thing or two. So maybe after 5 years of marriage, I would argue, you never told me, give me a proof. You guys know what I'm talking about. But I realized it's not very effective. So I said to her, and I'm dead serious, God was with me at that time because he put it in my mind. I said, wow, we're married for a decade and I'm still learning new things about you. How exciting. She gave me another look. And it was the look she gave me was a little smirk with nice save. She didn't say it, but that was her look, nice save. You don't know everything about each other in relationships. Your parents don't know everything about you. You don't know everything about your parents. You have no idea. But a real genuine relationship is going to be a relationship where you have some insecurities and you're going to have some vulnerabilities, and that's okay. I'm not saying we should be insecure. I'm just saying it's okay that we have some degree of insecurities and vulnerabilities, and we can work on it over the years. We should not act upon these insecurities. I'll give you an example from Tanakh. I'm very mesmerized by this story. King David. Everybody knows the story of King David. Everybody knows what King David is, who King David is. But before King David, there was another king, King Shaul. And he said, and he was a very, very good king, very righteous king. Not perfect, obviously. Very powerful king. He comes from the tribe of Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin. And Shmuel HaNavi, he anointed him to become king. And he raised him. He was very close to Shaul. It was like a son to him. And he gave him one commandment from God. He said, he told him, Shmuel is telling Shaul the following. He says, you're going to go to war with the Amalekim, with Amalek. And I want you to destroy everything. Leave nothing alive. Zero. Not the cattle, nothing. When he went to battle, he defeated the Amalekim. And Shaul HaMelech, unfortunately, did not listen to Shmuel, the commandment that he got from God. He left the cattle behind. The cattle, as Shaul HaMelech said to Shmuel, when Shmuel confronted him about it, he said, I see all the cattle here, Shmuel is telling Shaul. What is this? This is from the war. All the possessions from the war. Why is the cattle here? So what does Shaul tell him? No. You have to understand, I left it so this cattle and all the flock can be sacrificed to God. So there's a very famous line that this is where Shmuel answers him. He says, you think it's better to sacrifice to God, or is it better to listen to what God is telling you? And not only that, he also left the king Agag. Agag was the king of the Amalekim. He left him alive for one day. And the reason he did is because he wanted to show how he's humiliating the king and he's embarrassing him. He's going to kill him in front of everybody. But that wasn't God's commandment. God's commandment was simple. Everything eradicate, period. Shmuel comes and confronts him and he tells him, I don't understand. God gave you a commandment. Why didn't you listen? And he tells him an explosive line. He says, why are you so small in your own eyes, Shaul? Why are you so small in your own eyes? God made you king over the Jewish people. Why are you small in your eyes? You're a king. You're supposed to lead them. Shmuel responded back to him. But after a few verses, Shaul tells him the following. He says, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Hatati. The commentaries say on this that when Shaul says, I made a mistake, Hatati, that he understood that what he did wrong. But what he did wrong, the reason he did what he did and he did not listen to God is because he feared the people. He feared that the people would be unhappy with his sovereignty, with his kingdom. There's so much cattle, there's so much prized possession from war. Share it, let everybody have it. He feared that the people would not would be unhappy with his kingdom. This is why Shmuel tells him, why are you so small in your eyes? You are the leader. Being in that position, someone is always going to be unhappy. It's inevitable. It's a very tough position to be in. He tells him, because you didn't listen, he tells Shaul, because you didn't listen to God and follow his commandments, God no longer desires you as king. And he says, God is going to choose another that's better, which is David. You see, Shaul HaMelech, he's great, righteous, there's so much to learn from him. But that insecurity of, I need to appease the people, he acted upon that insecurity. I need to make sure the people are going to be happy, is what lost him his kingdom. David HaMelech, on the other hand, you want to know about him? Just read Tehillim. Now, Tehillim is not easy to read because a lot of it can be somewhat archaic and ancient, but a few lines here and there, you could see David HaMelech's connection with God. You see, he talks about his own vulnerabilities and insecurities, what's going to happen. Probably the most famous Tehillim. We say, Shiur LaMa'alot Esa Anai El Harim Ma'an Yavor Izri. He says, I gaze my eyes upon the mountains. Where will my help come from? He doesn't. Where will it come from? And he says emphatically, it's only going to come from Hashem. And David HaMelech experienced a ton of suffering. One of his children died. He was chased, and he was chased after. People wanted to kill him, and people wanted to usurp him and take over his kingdom. But that David HaMelech really showed his insecurity and vulnerabilities when it came to God. Because it's that type of heart that's always going to bring you back to God. Because if someone is always full of security, confidence, it's also part of the reason why our job as men is always to give reassurance to our wives. It's what also brings us together and makes us very much connected. And from time to time, us men, we also need a little bit of assurance, just putting it out there. It won't hurt. Not a lot, just a little bit. But Hashem is vulnerable with us. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. You know how we know that? Just read the Chumash. Look how we affected God. We did the sin of the golden calf, God becomes very upset. We did the sin of the spies, God becomes very upset. He still gives us another chance. We're still in it. Yeah, there are consequences to our actions, but at the end of the day, He's vulnerable with us. It's a two-way street. We can affect Him. So when you go and you pray, you're affecting Him. You're doing something. But we cannot live our life according to the insecurities that we have. I want to talk about zivugim here for a second. Those who don't have a zivug, it's very, very difficult. Especially today, there's a real genuine crisis. Not even in the ultra-Orthodox, you should know, there's a real genuine crisis. I don't want to get into the details of it because it's not that it's not relevant, but it's not the point that I'm trying to make. But many people are still searching, whether they're in their 30s, even 40s, in the 20s, whatever it is. And a lot of times, their insecurity becomes a roadblock that they can't find somebody. I think the moment people accept those insecurities, they'll have a lot of easier time. Maybe a man feels like a lot is not going for me. I'm struggling to make money. Maybe he feels like he's not particularly handsome or good looking. Maybe the family he comes from, maybe how he grew up. I want to tell you, at the end of the day, it's not in your hands. And I turn back to this side of the room, and it's not in your hands. Finding your soulmate, it's really in Hashem's hands more than anything else. And I think those who are married for quite some time and have decent marriages will tell you how true that is. There is things that we can do from our end. We can work on ourselves, we can refine our character, and that's very important because it's going to help us have happier marriages, no question. But all the insecurities, all the negativity that we bring into our lives, it's something that unfortunately exudes outwards and it pushes people away. There has to come to a reality where we accept those insecurities. And the rest, we should let Hashem take care of it. We should just pray to Hashem, because as corny as this sounds, every single pot has its cover. I'm telling you. The type, it's unbelievable how Hashem puts them together. But we have to learn not to be so controlling over that aspect. We have to have guidance. Guidance wouldn't hurt, having a little bit of guidance in that regard. Tefillah, I can't overstress the importance of praying and asking for it, in guiding us. But I am telling you, no matter what you experience and what you feel even towards yourself, or Hashem has a zivug, Be'ezrat Hashem, and it's waiting for you. And everyone who needs it, Be'ezrat Hashem, will get it. Just don't allow the insecurities to dictate your life. It's okay, it's normal. Everybody has insecurity. I'm here speaking, every speaker here that speaks, I promise you, everywhere they go, they have an insecurity. Was I able to get the message correctly? Did I make sense? Did the people like it? You can hear yes, but you still have this insecurity. It's normal, it's okay. We have to be confident enough to be insecure. It wouldn't hurt. Same thing goes with parnasa. Same thing goes with children. I'm going to finish with the following. Just because we don't know something, just because we don't understand it in a relationship, that doesn't mean that the relationship is not real or genuine. You guys know Maimonides. He writes, and it's not just him, others write this as well. There's one king in Israel, his name is King Shlomo, Melech Shlomo. With him, there was the most peace out of all the kings. He's the son of David HaMelech. And he's the wisest of all men. And the Torah gives us only 3 mitzvot and their reasons. All the other mitzvot, we don't have actual reasons for them, but there's 3 mitzvot where it gives us the reason. With Shlomo HaMelech, even though he understood those mitzvot, but he was able to rationalize beyond those reasons. You know what these 3 mitzvot were? You can't have too many horses, you can't have too many wives, and you can't have too much money. Unfortunately, even though the Torah gives us reasons for these mitzvot, he ended up having 1,000 wives. But it's for different reasons. It was for more of a global political reason. Because if he married the duchess of that region, or if he married the queen across the other side of the sea, he would be able to have more control as the king. That was really the basis for it. And so the rabbis say that at the end of his life, Shlomo HaMelech did avodah zarah. And he's a righteous king. How could you say he did avodah zarah? So the rabbis say, no, it's not that really did avodah zarah, but his wives did avodah zarah. So it's like he did it. And God gave the reason for not to have many wives. He said it. Which means that even if you know the reason, the wisest of all men failed with these specific mitzvot that have the reasons for them. And he's the wisest of all men. Which means it's okay if I don't know everything. And it's okay that we don't know. And it's okay if the nations or the Satan try to make fun of us that we do something that they don't know about, whatever it is. And it's okay that we're insecure about it. It's perfectly fine. Part of being in a relationship is that you're not going to know everything. And you know what? It's even a little bit of exciting. There's even some excitement about it. I don't know. But how can I show my real commitment? I'm here, I'm doing it, even though I don't understand it. With that being said, Be'ezrat Hashem, I pray that, and I'm saying this really to myself and to everybody else, that whichever insecurities that we have, we learn to accept them, and we learn to manage them, and our close ones, our loved ones, that at the end of the day, that we are going to open ourselves up where they can even come in and help us, that we can extricate ourselves from that. And there's always going to be new insecurities, new anxieties, new things always going to come up. God is not doing anything to us to try to make things difficult on us. It's just part of being in a relationship is that you're not going to know everything, and you're going to be insecure, and you're going to have vulnerabilities, and God is also vulnerable with us. It's part of the relationship. But that's a real genuine relationship that I'm willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to put myself out there. I'm willing to try. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Okay. But at least you gave it a real genuine shot, even with someone else that didn't work out. But it's one of the things that really makes good, genuine relationships so worth it. Be'ezrat Hashem, the last point I'm going to say, we're coming on to Pesach. Everybody knows we're trying to be free on Pesach, right? Everybody understands the concept of Pesach. I promised my brother-in-law we'd talk about Pesach. So just one point on Pesach. What's freedom? Yeah, there's a physical aspect of being free, but if you always go back to kind of like Instagram and you're always scrolling and you realize we're wasting time and we could be doing something more productive, it seems like the instant gratification that's driving us is really enslaving us in reality. And a lot of times we want to be able to detach from that. So there is a concept of, yes, we're physically enslaved, but there's another concept where we have to be mentally and emotionally free. You know how we do it? Every single year, we go around the Leila Seder, we give out the Haggadot, and we start talking about our trauma in the past, how we were slaves, how Lavan wanted to kill us, how there's always somebody else to get us, there's always a new enemy every single generation, always someone is out to get us. That's what we do when we talk about it. You know what happens when we talk about it? About these concerns, these insecurities, these vulnerabilities, we're able to manage it. We give it, when you talk about something, you give it borders. It takes a form, it takes shape. I can talk about something, I can manage it better because now it's not in the unknown where I fear the unknown, or I'm extremely insecure about the unknown. I talk about it, so I can get into it. I have at least a good starting point. So we go around the table and read the Haggadah. And that's why Pesach is called Pesach, because the Peh, Sah, the mouth speaks. And you know what happens? And we have Leila Seder. Then when the mouth speaks, then we can have structure. We can have Seder. We can have the ability to extricate ourselves from these insecurities, or learn at the very least to manage them better. So I wish everyone an amazing Pesach. And Be'ezrat Hashem, Hashem should answer all your prayers. This Shiur should be לעילוי נשמת מנחם בן רחל, עידן קלאודה בן שרון, מרקוס בן פורטונה, רפואה שלמה תוכה דורית בת גאולה, גבריאלה בת שרה, הלן יונה בת חן חנה, עוז בן מיכל, מרדכי בן לאה, ברכה בת אישה, חנה בת שרה. נשמת ליליאנה חיה בת בכורה.